Hi, everybody. I'm Dana Brooks of Facing Brooks, and this is another episode of the EmPower Hour brought to you by the EmPower Plant. Welcome back. We have a great show today. We've got our panel back with us today. We've got our producer, Whitney Morris. We've got my law partner, Rose Caswick, and we have got one of our senior paralegals, Keisha. And our special guest today, though, is somebody I know very well, worked with him for many years, served on his board with a bunch of other really great community-minded individuals that really support the mission. And this is Randy Nicklaus, and he is the executive director of 211 Big Bend. So welcome, Randy.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I talk about you all the time. When we've had other shows, we've talked about what services you offer, anywhere from when we were talking about suicide and mental health to early childhood screenings. And so many people, they hear 211, but they're like, when do I call and what is that for now? Can you just tell us a little bit more about the agency and what you all do, what your mission is?
Okay, well, 211 Big Bend has been around for going on 51 years. So we have a long, I guess, pretty good reputation about counselor training and 24-hour hotline services. We help people find resources in our community related to human services. And we do crisis intervention, suicide prevention, and then we have a lot of specialized services, as you mentioned. We have a Help Me Grow program for child development screening. We have a veterans program. We can help with care coordination, help veterans find services in the community, and it's also designed to help them with their mental health issues and prevention of suicide. We answer a couple of statewide hotlines, Family Helpline, Florida HIV line. And so there's a lot of variety in the services that we offer. Anybody can call anytime. You can call 211, 3-digit number. We also have a 10-digit number in case you're out of the area and you just need to connect with us from another region. And so we have some technology. We have a resource database that's on our website. People can go to look up information about community resources. And we have apps that also connect to that website. So people can use that, or they can call us and we can help them find those resources. Go ahead. I just kind of rattled off a bunch of stuff that you might want to
Oh, I'll come back to it. Drill down. Let's hear from Rose Caswick, though, because Rose, we missed you last week and we paid the price. I don't know. We need your expertise. So what are we drinking today? What is our cocktail and who are we honoring?
We are drinking in honor of Missy Elliott. It is a take on a salty dog. It's grapefruit juice, vodka. There's a little maraschino liqueur, and then it has a cayenne salt spicy rim. So beware of that.
I should be over there drinking with you.
It's not all a win.
I have water.
These have not
we experiment.
Yeah.
We experiment.
Yeah, we have backup beverages just in case things don't go well. I do enjoy the spice finish on this, and I do like a salty dog just generally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could stick with that a little bit.
We can live with it. Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I can. Thank you for that effort. Back when I was growing up, they called her Missy Misdemeanor Elliott. Am I showing my age? Isn't that the same one? Yeah, see, I'm in my 50s, but I know stuff. Don't even. So thank you, Rose. I deeply appreciate your research into this and your effort every week. You're amassing quite a bar cart back there.
I am keeping us stocked.
Yeah, you're like a 60s housewife. Anybody comes over, there's a cocktail you can make from them. You have a
What do you need? I have it.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, let's start. Whitney, you knew that I was on the board of 211, and we sponsored their big fundraiser every year, which was always so much fun because we had the casino games and the silent auction and everything was just so much fun. I think Night of Hope is what we called it. And it was in February. And of course, COVID happened and we can't do that. But you remember all of the stuff we did with them. What do you know about 211 and how do you see it helping people maybe in your age group?
I remember at the Night of Hope event, there were some, sure I'm unmuted. There were some volunteers that spoke and told what they did at 211 and basically how easy it is to become a volunteer and how much you can do to help people just by talking to them, no matter what the issue is. That's kind of what appeals to 211 to me the most, because oftentimes, especially in COVID times, people feel alone and people feel lost. And I know we're going to touch on that later in this hour, but it's just great to have a resource for people who feel super alone. That's what I love.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see your numbers go up during COVID, or how did they compare, pre-COVID conditions? What kind of COVID impact did you see on the services you all are able to provide?
We had about a between 40 and 50% increase in calls.
Wow, that much.
It really spiked in March and April, May. People, when people were first needing to find resources, food was a big need.
Yeah.
Housing assistance, and then later transportation became big need to get to food pantries, to have food delivered, and also because everybody was locked up pretty much, they needed help getting services. And then let's see, then vaccinations. Testing was probably not a big type of call, but people called about that, and then also vaccinations. So we're helping people get rides to vaccinations, especially people that just don't have transportation, or if they're veterans, we have some special services for veterans too. So,
Yeah,
so that was the trend.
Yeah, I always refer to 211 as social services resource linking. Y'all used to put out something when I was in school to be a social worker. It was called The Book. 211 had The Book, and it was really a published, thing that you could hold that had all of the numbers. If you needed, health department, if you needed help with getting your rights restored, if you needed help fleeing an abusive relationship, it was just kind of they were the people who knew the people, is the way I kind of looked at it. But tell me more about the type of training the counselors get, because a lot of people have a good and big heart and want to help, but we're not talking about just getting on the phone and somebody talking to you like your sister or your friend. You're talking about some serious training behind these counselors.
Right. Yeah, we have a very extensive, comprehensive training program that lasts about 10 weeks, 2 nights a week, 2.5 hours a night. So it's about 75 hours total training, including supervised shifts and some fun room training to help learn the technology. But we do orientations. In fact, we're doing that right now. If anybody is interested, they can go on our website, 211bigbend.org/volunteer, find out more information. Our next class starts, I think, in 1 to 2 weeks, so we still have time. It's a commitment. We do a little screening interview. You fill out an application. You basically have to commit to doing 1 shift a week, 1 3-hour shift a week, plus an overnight. We do have some exceptions to that, but that's pretty much the standard requirement. The training provides a lot of active listening, hands-on skill training, as well as information about all kinds of different issues people call about, including mental health. And so once they complete that training, they get cleared to answer our hotlines, and they're a volunteer on our hotlines. And then we also have several paid counselors. A lot of our paid counselors are, I would say, probably 100% of them right now started out as a volunteer counselor.
Wow. So do you have to have any sort of background in psychology, social work, counseling, anything to become a volunteer?
No, you don't have to have any education. You just have to be 18 or older. But we are looking for folks with, compassion, decent judgment, and then we can train on the specific skills. But you don't have to have anything as a precursor, what's the word?
Yeah. Prerequisite or whatever.
Prerequisite. Yeah. There's no prerequisites.
Keisha, as a parent, I'm thinking, you're like me, you've got 1 child. And when you only have 1 child, you don't have anybody to compare them to. So you don't know if they're reaching milestones or acting weird or any of that stuff, So, part of what they offer is an early childhood screening thing. But what do you think of when you think of kind of the resources new parents need, or when people ask you for mental health support, and how 211 fits into that?
Well, for me, I wish I had that resource earlier with my daughter. As you know, I told the story before that she was diagnosed with brain cancer. And after that, she's had some self-esteem issues, and she deals with still struggles with depression now. And when she first started having those issues, I really didn't know how to recognize it. It was like, okay, you have your life, you should be fine. Why are you so upset?
Right.
And so having those resources, that training, that knowledge, that yeah, there is help for her, and me telling her it's going to be okay is just not enough.
Yeah.
And so it took her basically, I want to say hitting rock bottom, but getting it to a very low point before I was able to get some help for her. And even then it was hard. I had to end up finding her a counselor, but it wasn't, we had to wait for an appointment. It was one of those things where it was a long process. It wasn't where I know you could pick up the phone, there's someone she could talk to help her through. So those resources are very important. And I don't know if a lot of people know that they're available, because like me at the point, I didn't know that there was such resources as the 211. I didn't know the number to call. It was just like, what do I do?
Yeah. No, I got you. Because there's a lot of help that they can give, kind of like a immediate help, whenever you're talking
Yes.
about someone who's really, really down and they're thinking maybe hurting themselves or something. And that's a great resource, because they can talk to you right now, 24/7, 365. And then they can help you, maybe ease out into, maybe you need to see a therapist. Maybe you need to go inpatient for a while, who knows? But the good thing is they're not just going to talk to you, hang up, say good luck. They're going to make sure they put you in touch with somebody, and then they follow up on that, which is the number one thing. I think you lose people in follow up.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Rose, what are your thoughts on 211? Because you've heard me talk about it forever, and the firm has always supported it. And we have referred some of our clients to them because we're counselors / lawyers, but we can't do everything. And sometimes, honestly, we've referred clients there because their electricity's getting cut off. And we can't, give them money and stuff like that as much as we want to. There's certain ethical rules that keep us, kind of hamstrung in a lot of ways, but it's been such a wonderful resource for us and our clients. Rose, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. I think the most interesting thing about 211 is how many things it actually is. I think people think it's just, a suicide hotline, or just, it's one thing or the other, when really it is, like you said, a network of resources, a way to connect a lot of things, so that they're for all types of crises and life emergencies and things. And then just talking about specifically the mental health aspect of it, it's so daunting, I think, for people to seek out treatment for something like that, especially if you don't have the resources. Like, I'm going to go to therapy. Like, I have $100 a session for a therapist. No. What am I going to do? I'm going to stick it out until I get Baker acted and then my life is ruined. No, people just try and grit their teeth, and it's, if they know they have a resource, know they have someone they could talk to with, no strings attached, or to, be able to get resources within their resources, they'll be much more open to it, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can provide initial support. We can provide ongoing support, but we don't provide ongoing counseling. In other words, every time they call, they're gonna talk to a different counselor, and our counselors are not trained to provide ongoing therapy. But when somebody needs to talk to somebody, we're going to be there, and they can call us multiple times. We can provide referrals to therapists, and we can look for therapists that have that cover different kinds of insurance. And then there are a few low-cost sliding scale type programs in the community that we can tell people about. So we try to do our best to accommodate, but there are limited resources out there, whether it's financial assistance or other services, but we do have information that would tell if they're sliding scale or low cost, or if there's some financial.
Yeah, and I think having somebody, a coordinator type of person to help people through that kind of stuff is very important, because people they don't know. We get calls, about my mom's in a nursing home and I want to get her into a different one. It's like, that's something you have to work, with a caseworker, social worker, somebody who knows what you've got and what places can do for you. Yeah. They just got to get to the right people with the right information.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be a complex, we deal with a lot of complex situations, and we can help with part of it, and then we often have to refer to, like you said, a more in-depth service if it's case management. We do have, as you mentioned, care coordinators and navigators for different things, and they can follow up and try to help, get people from one step to the next, make sure they get connected to services, check in with them, and that sort of thing. So that's one of the helpful services that we've been providing.
I wanted to ask you about your area of service. This number works how far over, and what communities do you serve?
Well, we serve 8 counties in the Tallahassee, Big Bend region, from Madison, Taylor, over to Liberty, down to Apalachicola, Gadsden, let's see what Jefferson, Ocala. I think those are the 8 counties besides Leon or 7. But if somebody called us from another county on our 10-digit number, we'd still help them. There are 211 services throughout the state. So wherever they are and they dial 211, they'll reach somebody that can help them. If it's not our agency, it's going to be another agency. We all do similar things with our resource database, information referral, counseling support. But then each of these organizations, and there's 12 in Florida, we all have some unique community services that we provide within our service areas.
So do they all provide like a hotline, counseling, crisis, intervention type service, but then they may or may not do some of the other things that the other 211s do?
9 out of the 12 211s have the full range of crisis intervention services. They are actually one of the services that we do, and the other 8 that I mentioned do, is answer the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is the national hotline for suicide prevention. It's an 800 number, and when somebody calls from North Florida, that call gets routed to us and we answer that. If we get busy and we can't answer a call, it gets routed then to a different crisis center in that network, so that we're not putting people on hold, or they're not waiting if they're in a crisis situation. So like I said, 9 out of the 12 211s are also Lifeline centers and 24-hour crisis centers. The other 3 are good 211 services. It's just that they don't have the 24-hour component, but their calls after hours go to another 211 or another crisis line for those after hours support services.
Randy, how long have you been the executive director of 211?
35 and a half years.
Wow.
Long time.
Oh, wow, that's a long time. Now, if I were still on your board, I would be wanting to see your, what do you call it? Succession plan. That's a lot of eggs in one institutional basket. I would be mortified if I had to replace you.
Yeah.
You're an institution in our community, and you've always been kind of, behind the scenes, unless someone knows you really well. But I just don't think anybody has any idea, the footprint you've made on the community. What drove you to do this? Were you just not cut out for the ministry, or what?
No, I'm not cut out for the ministry. I have a degree in counseling human services or human systems. And I actually worked with adolescents for a year at Disc Village, and then I worked at emergency services at Appalachia with, suicide, psychiatric emergencies, and so on for about 2 years. And what I realized was that I didn't have the right personality to sit with people for a long time and provide therapy. I had a lot of other interests, including administrative, volunteer training, things like that. So this job came open, I applied, I got the job, and it really fit me, like a glove, I guess, as this expression goes. And I just grew with the agency. The agency and I kind of grew together. It started out as, when I started in 1985, there were a couple of programs, Crisis Hotline and the Florida HIV Aids Hotline was there at that time. And After that, we started adding different hotlines. The budget grew. We had more staff. I got involved in our state association, the Professional Association for Information Referral, and then I got involved in the National Association. And just, it was so interesting to me because we help so many people. We provide so many different services, and we support the other community agencies. We help people find the services at those agencies. When those agencies can't provide a service, they refer their clients back to 211 so we can help them or we can refer them to another agency. So we were just such a key component in the community that I just love that type of work, and it's always kept me interested.
Yeah.
In what I
No,
do.
I'm the same way. When I was a therapist, I just was sitting on my hands the whole time I'm in a session because I'm like, just get in the car. Let's go take care of this problem. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's go take some action. And you just have to go, no, I'm listening. I'm listening. So
Some people have a lot of patience and can do those types of things. And that's why it's great to have a diverse group of folks.
It is. It is.
People do different things as well.
You know, I wanted to ask you about that. How are you staffed and how many people do you serve with that staff?
Well, right now we have over 30 paid staff. We have a couple temporary grant programs that provide staffing that was related to COVID. Typically we have 30, 32 staff. Now, some of those are part-time. We probably have about 24, 25 full-time staff. They're not all counselors. Some are care coordinators or navigators that don't necessarily answer the phones. They follow up with people and help people in other ways. We have some administrative staff. And then we have volunteers. We have, right now, I think we have 40 to 60 active volunteers.
That's a lot.
And that includes some that are in training. They're not completely cleared yet. But we've had more volunteers, but with COVID, the numbers are a little bit lower. But we went to a virtual training for our volunteers, and so that has kept us very vibrant, I guess, with that program.
I bet that's something you'll probably want to continue. You'll probably keep the volunteerism up if they don't have to.
Oh yeah,
sleep.
that's always been a core part of our program. We'll always, I think, have a strong volunteer program. We have a coordinator of volunteers. We have an outreach and education coordinator who does all the training for volunteers. And when they get trained, then the volunteer coordinator supervises them. But we have a lot of other full-time, part-time counselors. We have a couple supervisors. We have some other directors and coordinators. They do a lot of other things. They do outreach. We have somebody that's doing fundraising, communications. So we have a lot of different staff, although we're pretty bare bones when it comes to administrative staff.
You are. Now, how many people do you all serve? I mean, how do you quantify who you serve? Do you break it up by each service or just the number of calls? How many people do you all serve every year?
Well, last calendar year, we served over 31,000 people with all of our programs. Typically, our 211 has served around, I'd say, 16 to 18,000 a year. But in calendar year 2020, we served 22,600, and that number is probably a little bit higher next. Well, maybe it'll be about the same. Calls have gone down since January, February a little bit. But we have to provide coverage 24/7. So it's not so much how many people we serve. I think it's the quality of our service that I really feel good about.
Yeah.
We have capacity to serve a few more people than we do. So I'm not real concerned about the increases we've had. Plus we've had those special programs that helped us add a couple counselors for this past year.
I wanted to talk about that because I served on the board 3 years and we sat through some audits. Everything has to be audited when you're spending other people's money in a nonprofit. And then we also had to go through certain, for lack of a better word, you had to demonstrate that it was a good idea for your funding sources to continue giving you the money.
Yeah.
Is
yeah.
the best way to put it.
Accountability. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know United Way came by and we showed up for them, and they always look at a number of things. They look at who you're serving and what your outcomes are, but they also look at your board support and board involvement, which is also so important. Anybody who's considering being on a nonprofit board, please understand that is an active commitment. That is not a resume builder. You need to show up and you need to do your part, whatever that is. You were chosen among other people, in your community. And so you really need to deliver and not let it turn into the 80-20 thing where 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work.
Right.
But tell me about how you get your funding and how your funding informs the services you provide, because I believe at one point we got money for a certain thing and just started providing that service.
Yeah, we try to, stay within our mission. We don't go out too far outside where we want to go with funding. So if somebody comes and says, let's do this, and it doesn't fit, then we wouldn't take that funding.
Yeah.
But typically we continue to modify what we do based on our funding, our funders and their requirements. They do want to see some outcomes. That's why we're doing a lot more follow-up and care coordination, because that gives us more feedback about how the folks that we're helping, how they're doing, how they're getting help, how they're getting connected to services. So that shapes it. We do have some specialized programs, which we mentioned, the veterans and the Help Me Grow. And so they have a little bit more outreach and education components to what we're required to do there. Our funding comes from a lot of different government sources. Actually, we have local government through our city and the county, and then we have regional Department of Children and Family Services, that's state funding, and then the 2 statewide hotlines are funded by the Department of Health, Florida Department of Health. Help Me Grow is funded through Department of Education and goes through the Children's Forum. We have some after hours contracts for our 211s in the Panhandle. We answer their after hours calls. Lifeline, we get a small stipend for that to answer those calls. So, and then we do fundraising. We have to raise probably on average $75,000 a year, and that gives us the resources to do the things that our government funding sources won't allow us to spend the dollar on.
Gives you a little push, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't go very far when you think about what it has to cover. But this past year we had some extra funds from the county and the city had some CARES dollars related to COVID.
Yeah.
There was a lot of concern about mental health, so we added some mental health navigation services, and we are partnering with our mental health council, the Big Bend, and we're maintaining a database, a resource database that just has mental health therapists in it. So we have to keep that up to date, and then we can use that to help refer people, as we mentioned earlier, to therapists
Gotcha.
based on what their expertise is, what insurance they cover, things like that.
What are your thoughts on these online therapists? Everything, COVID changed things. It kind of escalated things or accelerated things. There's a lot of things that were in the works, like telemedicine. People were talking about that forever, and then COVID made that actually happen. And a lot of people want to stick with it. You don't have to touch your doctor. Not every one of them. Some of them you do, some of them you don't. Same thing with the mental health. Sometimes, I know I am not ashamed to say it. I see a therapist. There's no shame in that. But he and I used to meet in person. And then when COVID started, we started FaceTiming.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I'm like, listen, I don't lose 2 hours when I see you, because I had 30-minute drive both ways and an hour there. So that was kind of indulgent. Not everybody has 2 hours in their schedule, like that. So we kind of like it. We're going to keep doing it. But I hear about Whitney Morris. What's the name of that online service you hear about? Because they sponsor that podcast you and I like. What's it called?
BetterHelp. I think.
BetterHelp.
There's a couple of them.
There's a couple of them. Yeah,
I did BetterHelp for a minute. I'm not a habitual therapy goer, but it is really, I don't like it. I think it's really hard to connect with somebody, especially when you're dissecting your entire life and trying to find all your problems. It's I don't really care for it, especially since the the phone lines aren't, very strong sometimes, and you break up and all that kind of, issue. So.
I would imagine that would be hard to do the rapport building part. That almost does certainly kind of need to be in person. I don't know. I think that's why we were able to make the adjustment, my therapist and I were, because we had, an established relationship. This was just, a different way of communicating. But yeah, I get that. And then I also wonder if the online and the telephone thing isn't best for crisis management interview, like getting you over this issue. And then
I think it can be. I mean, obviously we've been doing that for 50 years.
right.
I know with COVID, a lot of telehealth started related to the mental health services in our community and in our region. They allowed mental health telehealth for insurance to be covered for telehealth services, and that was an exception, but now they're probably, looking at continuing that. Mobile outreach is another crisis intervention type of program, and they're using telehealth as part of that. Sometimes if a law enforcement officer has to go out, talk to somebody, see how they're doing, if they're really in bad shape, they can bring a tablet with them and connect with the mobile outreach or crisis response team, and they can do a quick consult and intervention via that. So they're doing that. I think some people may find it more difficult on a telehealth long distance, and other people may find that more comfortable. They might, just like we always said, maybe you're not comfortable going to see a therapist, but if you start with calling an anonymous hotline like ours, and you get comfortable talking about an issue, that may kind of help you get more comfortable with the idea of going to see somebody on an ongoing basis for that concern. So I think it fits for some people better than others, and I think it can be a good service.
Yeah. Yeah. And then again, like you said, you've been doing it for 50 years, or y'all have been doing it for 50 years. So it works in the right situations. I don't know, like you said, it has to be the best, unique fit for the individuals if they want to continue a relationship.
And different styles and personalities, fit differently.
Yeah, 100%. Well, the good news is it's given jobs for these people. It used to, nobody wanted you to be a therapist. They're like, what are you going to do? Who's going to pay you? But it's like anything else, anything painful you grow from. And so COVID was painful, but we're going to get a lot of good lessons and growth opportunities from it. Does anybody else on the panel have anything they want to say? This is almost like an information interview more so than an opinion sharing, but I do want to hear from Keisha and Rose and Whitney if you have anything.
For me,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rose.
Oh, I was just going to say, on those online services, the telehealth, I am about it.
You are good.
You don't touch me, don't look at me,
Oh,
don't
yeah.
take my weight, don't take my blood pressure. I'm never going to the optometrist again. I'm never going to the psychiatrist again. No, we can do it all online. I think it's great. But I had a question for Randy. He listed some of the things that changes in services or need for services during COVID. I was wondering if either during COVID or in general, there were things that you see women seeking out more than the general population.
Great question.
Be a specific need
I-
for women.
I don't know if I would say there was something specific. More of our callers are women than men. Let me just look at, I think
They
probably.
will ask for help. They will ask for directions. They realize they don't know everything.
Yeah.
No one expects them to.
I would actually,
Hey, girls.
I'm actually a little surprised by that. I'm not gonna lie.
It's last year it was 2-to-1
Wow.
female over male callers.
Is that different than your prior years, or is that?
Well, I was just looking in the year before that, it was probably closer to 33% male. So male callers, the percentage went up. Not 33, but it was 1/3 of the female, and then it was 1/2. So I don't know what that percentage is, but it seemed like we got more callers that were male. And that's an interesting observation. Actually, I hadn't even thought about that until now.
Well, what I was thinking of, Rose, I don't know where you were thinking, but I was like, all these women who had to drop out of the workforce, all these women who have that extra layer of now I'm a teacher.
Yeah, have kids at home or have to find meals for kids who are not getting meals at school.
Yeah, they're
Exactly.
hungry.
How many, Brandy, we talked about that all the time. When children aren't in school, a lot of them are not eating.
Yeah.
Are y'all able to help put people and link them to some resources that will help offset what they're not getting at school?
Well, yes, we have a couple ways we're doing that. There's a program in the summer called the Summer Break Spot, which is run by the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Basically, it's partnership with the Second Harvest and other food services and food pantries. We can refer people to those services when schools are not in session, and that continued all year this year. Although the bigger I think help we did was we worked with Second Harvest Food Bank to provide meal deliveries. This is a big collaboration with United Way Worldwide, United Way locally, and also DoorDash to deliver meals to. I think it wasn't just seniors, but we did focus a lot on seniors. But anybody that was homebound, they would sign up with Second Harvest, and we would coordinate the DoorDash deliveries. And we were also doing some Lyft. We have a partnership with Lyft and United Way Worldwide to provide rides, Lyft rides, to folks for food-related stuff or job, like maybe an interview or job services, like Capital Source. Trying to think of some other job things we were doing, but anyway, the food stuff was a big issue, and you saw pictures in news stories on all the people sitting in lines for food back in last May, April, and that continued through the summer. So we're still doing those things. So, and those things kind of grew and developed through the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of what you're just hustling. You're like, okay, now they need us to coordinate food. Let's do it. Now we need to coordinate driver. You're just hustling the whole time, getting people what they need. The Hannah Bland is one of the people watching, and she just thought there's nothing. She just wanted to say she thinks there's nothing better than an outreach ministry. She loves it, and that's what I think of when I think of you and how you've committed yourself to the success of this effort. And you really have given up. Your wife is 100% support. I love Miriam. She's an excellent realtor for all of those of you who want a realtor right now. If you can get a hold of her, she's probably busy. No, I know an end. I can get her. But no, I appreciate you because I mean, this is not a job. This is not a job. This is a career. This is, seemingly your life's work. Keisha, I cut you off earlier. What was your comment that you wanted to make?
I had more of a question regarding the volunteer aspect of it. What is your typical volunteer? Are they like retirees, or they are people that are just working part-time looking for something extra to do? Because I myself am actually interested in doing something along those lines, but with me working a full-time job, I don't know how my schedule would be able to.
She's busy. She has no time for you, Randy.
Well, it's a commitment. We have
there's other layers of volunteerism. Talk about all the layers of volunteerism, because that's a great one.
Yeah, we have a lot of college students who volunteer with us. A lot of them are psychology, social work majors that are going on to careers in those areas in psychology. And this is not only an area where they can get experience, but they can test the waters that if they want to do that for a career. So they have more flexibility with their schedules, it seems. If you're working now, if you can get through the training, which is the more intensive time commitment, for 10 weeks, if you can get through that and make all the training, then the volunteer scheduling can be much more flexible. Because we're open 24 hours a day. So you can volunteer in the evenings, you can volunteer on weekends, like I said, overnights, or even during the day. We have some volunteer slots there. We do have some people that have worked with us as volunteers that have been retired or working in the community. But the majority of them are college age.
Yeah, we're so fortunate that near us, we've got 3 colleges who put out social workers. And then plus we also have people who put out counselors and therapists and such. So that's the great thing about being in Tallahassee. If you're new to the mental health, career field, there's a lot of opportunities to try out a lot of different things. That's what I like about 211, because maybe you want to stay there, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to think about working at CCJA, Capital City Youth Services, or JS. I'm terrible with initials, but you kind of get to dabble. You almost you get to meet people, and then you kind of see what's a good fit for you, versus what I did, which was go one way and it didn't work. So I just left that profession, and now the world has another lawyer. You're welcome. I should have tested some other areas and seen if I might have been better in a managerial or administrative role. Who knows?
Well, the skills you learn going through our volunteer training can be used in any career. The active listening skills, the communication skills. Like I said, I have a master's in counseling. I'm not a counselor, but I use communication skills
Yes.
all the time. And the more you can build good relationships, that's a big part of any type of career.
Same with us. We know this. Rose, we talk about it every week on our partner meetings. I don't care how much money you throw at advertising. I don't care what your business is. It's a relationship business. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah.
And those skills that you learn, like me, the counseling skills. I mean, I couldn't do my job. I couldn't represent the people I represent, which is every man. I don't represent, huge business or owners or corporate executives necessarily. Most is every person. And so if I can't relate to every person and try to meet them where they are, that's what the best thing about counselors is they meet you where you are.
Yeah.
And so if you can't do that, you're going to have a big problem in relating to people and building trust and rapport with them. Let me ask you about this though. How many, you all started out, or at least in my mind, as like an AIDS hotline type of a thing. That's what I always associated 211 with, was AIDS counseling or AIDS hotline. And then of course, with the advent of all these, drugs and medical advances, that's a pretty manageable diagnosis nowadays, although I hear that it is starting to ramp up again. How much of your effort is related to AIDS, HIV now?
We still operate the Florida HIV AIDS Hotline through the Department of Health. And our call volume there is a lot lower than it was, let's say, in the late 80s and the 90s, when AIDS was, everybody was afraid of.
Way more afraid of that than COVID, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly. There was a panic time.
And you could control how you got AIDS versus COVID. You don't even see it. You don't even know somebody's got it. But we were so much more worried about AIDS
than
we are about COVID.
We started the HIV AIDS hotline in 1985. It was actually a couple months before I started, and it continued to grow, and the knowledge of what HIV was grew, but the call volume increased to the point where that was our busiest hotline through the late 80s and early 90s. And so I think things, kind of come and go, or not come and go, but go up and down, based on what's happening. Every time there's some kind of community disaster, that's another thing we help with, is hurricane response and other disasters, helping people, whether it's with shelters or sandbags, or after an event, we help with the recovery efforts.
Yeah. That's one of the things I did to try to shame the city and everybody into giving us more money one year. I was like, we did your job.
Yeah.
We were sitting there on the phones answering these questions about, well, who's got gas? Where can I go for electricity? Who's got a generator? I mean,
Right.
Y'all are literally just sourcing every single question that people had after that it was what it turned out to be a Category 5 hurricane. But
Yeah.
that was, y'all were working that. You really handled it. And I was so proud to tell people that I was a board member of that very important service that you all are providing. Do people call you now about things like housing? Like, I'm about to get kicked out. Can they do this to me? Or do they give you those financial questions like, okay, I got this stimulus, do I have to use it? Are you getting things that are outside of the realm of what you do just based on the specific challenges people are having right now?
Well, housing is one of our most common calls. And it's not only people that need financial assistance to pay their mortgage or pay their rent, but it's people that are on the verge of being homeless or people that aren't homeless. We do help. We partner with like the Kearney Center and Homeless Coalition and others. If people need emergency shelter, we can tell them what the eligibility is and connect them, with what they need to do to get into a shelter. But housing has always been a big issue. Financial needs, basic needs, are probably the biggest type of need that we see. And whether
Like if their electricity's about to get cut off or something like that, or we're about to get evicted.
Utilities, it's housing, it's food, medical assistance, anything that people struggle with. Our community, I think, I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but I think the population or the people in Leon County that were living in poverty, I think was in the low 20s. And then there was another 20, 25% of people that were not in official poverty, but it was very hard to make ends meet. It's very hard to make ends meet month to month. If you have an emergency, like your car breaks down or something like that, you have to give up something else, some basic necessity. So, and then we call those the ALICE group, which is the asset limited. They're working, but they're not making enough money. And so when you think about that percentage in total with poverty and everything, it's in the 45, 46% range of people in our community that are struggling financially.
We called that the working poor when I was in school.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is people can go in and out of poverty, just like they can go in and out of homelessness. People used to never know someone who was homeless, or you didn't think you did. And then you start talking to them and you realize there are people who are serving on this board with you or carpooling with you or whatever, who've experienced living out of their car for a certain period of time. I'm glad that people feel more comfortable sharing their stories, because we're kind of normalizing that experience and the capacity to be empathetic toward it. So I think that's a good thing, but I'm also, concerned that people who have actually experienced homelessness. And so that's always been alarming, but we have a question that's kind of following up to what I asked. And that is, are you having people calling you looking for jobs, or how's the best way to find a job? Anything about employment?
Well, we do get calls, people that are looking for jobs, and we refer them to services in the community that can provide job training, interview skills, help them search for jobs. Like I said before, we're working with Lyft. If people, let's say they didn't have a car and they can't get to an interview appointment, we could arrange a Lyft ride for that person if there's some advance notice. So that's kind of how we've been helping with the job issue.
And then I have personally a couple of questions before we go through to our panel for our wrap up. But two things: how does somebody give you money? We talked about how they volunteer, but what if they want to give you some money? How do they do it? What kind of money are you looking for? Is there a minimum? Is there a maximum? Which is hilarious. I know there isn't, but I'm going to ask you. And then I also want to talk about what if someone wants to serve on your board? So first, about how do they give you money and how do they serve on the board?
On our website, 211bigbend.org, there is an invest button at the top, which is a donation button. And excuse my cat, he just jumped in my lap. And so you can donate through your credit card online. And we have 2 events a year. As you mentioned, Night of Hope wasn't held this year because of COVID, but we'll do that again probably next February. So that's a fun event. It's like a social with music, and we do some casino games and some other things for entertainment. And then we have a run 211. Actually, we're doing a run right now. It's a virtual run, so we're kind of doing it all month long, so people can
sign me up for virtual runs.
There you go.
I want to be the leader of the
Okay.
pack in the virtual runs. Thank you.
So there's no minimum donation, there's no maximum donation. We're very happy to get any size donation. We are 501c3, so donations are tax exempt based on the IRS rules. As far as volunteers on the board, we have a board right now of, I think, 12, 13 board members. And we try to have as diverse board as we can find. And then we have different skill sets. Some are financials, legal. We don't have an attorney right now since you were on the board and you've
How
left.
can that be? You can't swing a cat in Tallahassee and not hit an attorney. That's on you.
I know. But you know, we always have a CPA. We have somebody usually in banking or something like that. And then we have human service type people, education folks, marketing folks. So if somebody's interested in being on our board, typically they'd let me or one of our board members know, and we do some other things to recruit board members at different times of the year. We have a one-page application just saying that, you know, this is who I am. I'm willing to attend board meetings. I'm willing to make a financial contribution. It doesn't have to be a huge contribution, but we do try to, you know, say you'll either help us with personal contributions and help us fundraise, like with sponsors and things like that for our events. And then participate in some area of our board. It could be a committee, it could be a special event. So you're actively involved. And then there's board meetings. We have 8 board meetings a year. So those are the types of commitments. And then we have a little vetting process. We meet with prospective board members, make sure it's a good match for both them and us. And then we kind of go from there.
Yeah, and I like that you make a priority of having people from the academic world that's relative to the services you provide on the board. You've got some professors from, I know you at least one professor from the College of Social Work.
Right.
Well, yeah. And then you had some student members, which I liked.
Yeah.
You know, because you need to keep it's like a church. If you don't keep the young people interested, it's going to die out. So you got to keep feeding it. But yeah,
we're working right now trying to do more outreach in the public schools and eventually different county schools. But we're kind of learning exactly what we need to do to get our foot in the door, some of those areas.
Yeah.
So having youth on the board, it can be helpful in that regard.
I have one more question that we got from someone who's watching, and they wanted to know how do you find out about job opportunities within 211, the agency itself?
So as I mentioned, most of our counselor positions are hired from within our trained volunteer ranks.
Yeah.
But if we have a full-time position that's not a counselor, we'll advertise that on our website if there's an opening.
So the website's a good way to go for the non-clinical, I guess.
And if you're interested in being a counselor, I would recommend you consider being a volunteer because then you got your foot in the door and you're eligible for paid positions.
I totally agree because every counseling environment is a little different. So you need to see if that's the one for you. And it might be a good one for you if you're somebody who doesn't want that long ongoing relationship with a person. You want to work with them now, and don't misunderstand me. I mean, it could be an hour-long phone call. It could be an hour and a half. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that really will be the end of that particular interaction with that client, because you're going to hopefully refer them on and get them to somebody who give them that longer-term care.
Yeah, and
So,
as a counselor, you don't have to use your real name. You usually just use your first name because you don't disclose who you are to the callers.
Yeah. No, that's all very manageable. And I think it's a good way to test out both parties in the environment and see if that's a good fit. And then, when you do promote and make them permanent, you've got somebody who gets you and gets what your mission is there. So I think that's a very prudent way to go about it. I want to go around to our panel before we wrap up today. This has been so informative. Like I said, I talk about 211 all the time, and everybody follows up. They tell me more about it. Tell me more about it. And I said, well, let me get an enlightened, empowered, equitable man on the EmPower Hour to tell us about it. So you fit that bill. Let's go with Rose first. What are your final thoughts or questions as we close today?
Well, I'm just glad that we're getting this information out there. I know we talk about it, but it's not something I probably would have heard of if you weren't on the board and we didn't go to that event. And I think it's important to know. And, people, it's hard enough if you're struggling with mental health issues when you have, resources to know where your next place you're going to sleep is, where your next meal is. I can't imagine dealing with it and not having those things. I could go to the doctor if I need to, but I'm glad there's resources for people who are struggling in more ways than one.
People who don't have every privilege. When I was thinking about this with COVID, this time last year, we were still wondering whether we should wash our food before we put it in the cabinet. And then that was after somebody from Shipped, gave it to me, or I drove up and somebody brought it out to my car because I'm a privileged person. That's the biggest problem I had last year was, what beautiful house do I, hunker down in, and who's going to bring me my prepared food or my fancy stuff? That's not the average person, and that's certainly not the life I've had my whole life, but that's not the average person. People are worried about eating, and then there's so many, like Rose asked about how this has affected women from your perspective for their calls to help, because, they're not only just staying home, they're coming out of the workforce, they're staying home, they're taking care of their kids, they're schooling their kids, but they're also sometimes taking care of elderly in-laws, parents, shut-ins, people that they don't want to go to nursing homes, so they're having to take care of. I mean, the burden of all of this, and to think, and this is one of those times where you check your privilege, young lady. That's the way I look at it. Because there's a lot of things. If you didn't have these resources, you can go to doctor anytime, you can go to a shrink anytime or whatever, but what if you can't? It is so great to be able to pick up a phone from anywhere and call 3 little digits 211 and get someone who genuinely cares about you, will get you through this crisis and help you create an action plan so you feel like you have a little bit of hope. That's all the counselor does, is instill hope if they're good at their job.
It keeps you humble and it keeps you balanced, helping people.
No, I love that. That's an excellent point, Rose. Keisha, what are your final thoughts today as we close?
For me, this was very enlightening. Right before we got on this, the EmPower Hour, I went to get gas, and I got to see.
There you go, girl.
And it was like I saw. People can really be mean these days.
Yeah,
they get so wrapped up in self, and they're just mean. And to
I got mine.
know that
I got mine.
Yes, there are people blowing horns and yelling at people, and it's just this was a good reminder. There are people still out there that care about others, and they're willing to give of their time, and there are resources, and there are people out there that are willing to help and not expecting anything in return. And that was just a reminder, as crazy as things are right now in this world, there is still good. And that's just, to me, this was just great after having that experience. Like, there are people who really care, and they're truly kind-hearted and want to help others. So I really enjoyed it. And I didn't know about the resources, and I'm glad. So I can even share, even talking with our clients, sometimes people are going through stuff and you really don't know what to tell them. And to know that I can refer them, hey, have you tried this? They may not be able to help you, but this is someone you can reach out to that may be able to assist you. So I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I do. I agree. I feel the same way. It restored my faith in humanity, and I needed it. But it's also good to just be able to tell somebody something real simple. Call someone. Instead of saying, well, try Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. If that doesn't work out, call this, whatever. I mean, it is so hard. If I know the answer, I'll give it to you. But so many times I don't know, but I know people who do. And so call them, try them. And yes, you're right. To have somebody who just goes into work every day with a spirit of giving. Wow. That is truly God's work. Whitney, what are your thoughts as we close today?
Oh, goodness. I love this. This topic, the month of mental health awareness. I think it's a very important thing, and we're still eons behind where we should about accepting people who have these daily issues. One thing I've heard recently is that your mental health doesn't care what's in your bank account. It doesn't matter if you're super rich. It doesn't matter if you're living on the streets.
Yes.
Your mental health does not know that.
Right.
So, you know, I like to say the people that are, you know, really wealthy, you know, they have that shame, like, oh my gosh, I have everything. I shouldn't have this issue. And conversely, people who have more issues, like more, you know, wondering where they're going to eat next or where they're going to sleep tonight, they're like, I should be more concerned about that than what's going on inside. And it just goes to show you that that mental health needs to be prioritized everywhere on the spectrum. So I love that you are 211 is a contact source for everywhere, for everyone in between. It does not discriminate, and that's what my favorite part about it is. So
We have a Facebook page, and we do daily posts, and a lot of them are mental health, taking care of yourself, and you know,
Right.
not only just about our services, but good information. So you can go on our Facebook page, like us, follow us, and
yes,
some of that
do
good
that. Some I think we have 211 was in the comments linking to your website. So make sure you look at that to see if you can volunteer or see if you can donate. That was very nice of you guys. Thank you.
Yes, and as Keisha says, there is no health without mental health. And that is exactly right.
That's
That
right.
is exactly right. I want to thank you, Randy Nicklaus, Executive Director of 211 Big Bend, who has been there for many, many years. And I don't know what they think they're going to do without you, but you need to help them prepare for that day.
They'll be fine. We're working.
Yeah.
We're
Okay,
working
I'm
on
gonna get a lot of phone calls. No, I really respect what you do. I respect your leadership and what the performance you're able to get from so many people who are really just volunteering. You know, it's not like you got a big hammer you can hold over them if they don't do a great job. They're there because they want to do a great job and do one for you under your leadership. So thank you for everything you do in the counties you serve in our community. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you making the time to come on the EmPower Hour today so we can shed a little bit more light on the things that are really out there for the people who are struggling.
It was fun. It's good to do this with y'all. Thank you for bringing me on.
Absolutely. And I want to thank again, Rose Caswick, my law partner, and you nailed it today, lady. This one I am not crying about.
I'll be right over.
This is a home run. Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah. And frankly, you owed me. I mean, you've had some fails, but anyway, this one was lovely. Keisha, thank you so much for your insight and always for sharing a little bit about your life and your struggles, because you know, it helps everybody else relate and feel, you know, it's just good to share things and know you've got the support of other people and that you're encouraging them in their journey. Whitney, thank you as always. Lovely production, and thank you for your contributions. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. Always let us know your questions. If you have any guests you would like to propose or have any things you would like to cover, questions, anything, let us know. We can put Randy and his people in touch with you. Just follow us on the Facebook page. Reach out to me, Dana, at basicbrooks.com, anytime you have any questions about anything. So thank you all so much. And you have a lovely weekend and a lovely week. We will see you 2 weeks from today. We're going to rerun a show next week because I'm going to be out of town, and then we'll start with some fresh stuff in 2 weeks. So thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, all.
Bye.